Ross Dellinger just put this up. Since the college football playoff began, and again, they're looking at a proposal, which means they're going to pass it, that will get to 12. There's some notes and a little quirks in there. Baylor would have made it at number 5 in 2014. In 2019, they were number 7. They would have made it then. In 15, they were not a part of the top 12. That was a team that was so good. They ended up I think 11 and 12 that year. I can't remember if that was the year. In 16, of course, it blew up. But in that time, had they gone 12 deep, Coastal Carolina, Indiana, and Cincinnati this past year would have gotten in. Memphis and Utah would have gotten in 2012. I'm looking at teams outside the bubble, so to speak. In 18, UCF.
Well, that's the thing, Indiana in particular, they're never good. And they were actually really good this year, and they would have deserved a spot.
Iowa State, by the way, last year as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Iowa State could have gone in there and maybe knocked off a team, quite frankly. They wouldn't have been intimidated by anybody. So, I mean, that's the fun in having these options.
In 17, UCF would have made it as well. So it would have been back-to-back years for them.
But, to me, it's also not that. I mean, if you look at, there's some big-name teams that, too, I mean, they have better, long histories that would have been just outside that, if they had been given an opportunity, they were probably playing well enough at the end of the year. You just get one more game and you get the right matchup. Maybe you have a shot at it.
Last year, Notre Dame, Florida, Georgia, A&M was 6th they would have been in. Georgia, Oregon. The year before that, Florida, Penn State. In 2016, Western Michigan would have been given the chance. In 2015, it would have been Houston. TCU would have made it as well. They were good again the next year, remember? And even Iowa was high in 15 and just outside the bubble. So it would have, you think about the SEC dominance. If this would have been in play, the Big Ten would have had 20 teams in, and this is over the last 7 years. The SEC 19, the Big 12 would have had 12. And not just Oklahoma.
Yeah, but 8 of those probably are OU.
Yeah, no, they are.
And then Baylor and Iowa State and TCU.
Yeah. ACC at 11, Pac-12 11, the group of 5, 8, and Notre Dame 3 times. Now, having said that, some of the notes about this. The first 4 games are going to be on home sites. The first 4 games will be on home sites. But the teams that get a bye, there's been a lot of questions in this press conference. How come those who don't get a bye, how come those who get a bye don't also then get a home game in round 2, the quarterfinals?
They got a bye. How much do you want? Do you want to get placed in the final automatically? I mean, you got a bye already. You played 1 less game. So I'd rather have that than home field advantage for an extra game. Now, money-wise, you might not. But, I mean, you got to give something somewhere unless you go to 16. So they're not doing that. So with an odd number like 12, you have to do something somewhere. So I don't know why the number 1 team in the country should get a bye and then a home game. So I'm fine with that.
Bob Bowlesby is not afraid to say things. I know a lot of people that watch, especially SicEm365 Radio, don't like him. He and I have had it out a few times. I'm not sure playing in East Lansing, Michigan on January 7th is a really good idea in response to a question about why using a bowl site in the quarterfinals. For Michigan State fans, it'd be a hell of a good idea. Yeah. The Packers play at home in January.
Yeah, I don't like
Buffalo does.
I understand you don't want your national championship game to be played in downpours of snow and things like that, but at some point, the elements are a part of the game. We can't make everything squeaky clean in 71 degrees, and no humidity all the time. So if you get that unlucky draw, well, guess what? You should have won more games to get a better spot in the tournament. Yeah. It can't be perfect for everybody.
By the way, something that Jack Swarbrick said, that it's interesting when the powers that be find their way to something that everyone's been saying.
Oh, and then they're so smart.
And then, So, asked about why 12-team playoff, why this. Jack Swarbrick said, I'll take the first shot at that. One of the things we were responding to was the concentration that's occurred. 78.5% of all the opportunities in the first 7 years have gone to 5 teams, not necessarily a model that promotes the regular season. And this, I guess, is in the response to, does the 12-team playoff hurt the regular season? When we did an analysis of this, one of the things that jumped out was in the current model, in the last 5 years, in 4 of the last 5 years, in the initial selection, no one has moved further from 7th to the Final 4, which doesn't promote the long-term interest over the season that we might like. So under this proposal, there's a shot for the regular season to matter more. And that was the BS excuse they get forever. Well, if we do this, the regular season won't matter. Well, the playoffs in the NFL, the regular season matters greatly.
Here's also about the extra games. Remember, that's been a problem. Oh, my God, we can't have more than 13, and now you have teams that might be playing 14 or 15. The route to get to 17 games in this model isn't impossible. But there have been a lot of things built in to make that highly unlikely. That means a 5 to 12 seed would have to run the table. But the concern was you can't do that. That's too much. We're missing school. Well, most of the time, the late December and early January, there is no school.
Well, but that's not okay. They also say they're missing school. What about basketball and baseball?
They're gone for a month and a half.
They're gone. Like right now, if you're one of the 16 teams in the baseball tournament, I mean, granted it's the summer, but like you're gone. You know, in basketball in March, which is there's no that you might get a week of spring break, but I mean, come on, it's insane.
I've always thought that was just now, as we've written, this is from Dellinger. I may have said this. 4% of the teams have made the postseason. 4%. 25 is the average in all the other sports, and there are more teams that make it. Will fans travel 3 times to the playoffs? Now, think about this. Now, Baylor fans, this could affect, now again, you hope it does, because we know it's been difficult, but it's a problem. It's a good problem, exactly. But how many fan bases, even in the craziness of the SEC and the madness of what they would do for anything to go to a game, how many fan bases can afford to go to 3 games and maybe 3 consecutive road trips?
Not many.
But, hey, that's a good problem. And there's also this thing called television.
You know, my issues with it, I guess, are that the playoff already devalued the losses in the regular season. As we saw, Ohio State gets upset, and then it doesn't even really matter in the long run that they got upset. So we all got excited about nothing, really. Bama loses 1 game. Doesn't even matter at all because they'll still get in because they'll win all the rest of them. So the regular season's already been devalued in that way.
Yep.
They've done that themselves by having a 14 playoff. So, yeah, this probably will devalue it even more. And you consider last year, I'm going to take my problem with this 12 team. Why does Iowa State, who lost 3 games, deserve a shot at a national title? They don't. They lost 3 games. A national champion should not have 3 losses on their resume unless everyone else in the country has 4 or more. So, I mean,
or 3 or more.
Or 3 or more. But, I mean, then that's where you get into the basketball thing. Could they be the Cinderella then? Like this 3-loss team that in every other year wouldn't have been even allowed into this tournament, they go and run the table potentially. That could be a great story. The odds on it are very, very low. But I do have a little bit of an issue with a team with 3 losses having a crack at this because –
oh, that's going to happen.
I know that. That's what I'm saying is my issue with this is that it is opening up the door to where – not only does not 1 loss even matter anymore because of the initial college football playoff, but now you could potentially lose twice, still doesn't matter. 3 times still doesn't matter. So, like,
did Iowa State have 3 losses in the regular season, or was one of those a win?
I guess one was in the conference title.
Here's the problem I have, though. If Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and maybe a handful of others are allowed a mulligan or 2, does this now give them a mulligan or 4?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I mean,
because here's the argument. This is what all these college football writers, this is what they say every time like a Bama or Ohio State gets brought up with their gatekeeping. But Bama, they lost to Vanderbilt, but they're still one of the best teams in the country. Well, why are they? Well, because they just are. I mean, look at the talent, look at the recruiting, look at the coach. But what does their record say?
Yeah.
And it's like they've already dismissed records for certain teams. Like that loss that Ohio State suffers doesn't matter as much as Baylor's loss or TCU's loss. Same thing for Bama. That's already been separated, so this is just going to further that big time.
But Bowlesby brought up the 12-team versus 4-team. It creates energy in October and November, which, of course, they had lost in a lot of ways. It's opposite of the current playoff, the regular season. There will be 25 to 30 teams with an opportunity to make the playoffs in the final weeks, where right now, how many are there? How many times?
7.
7.
That's what he said.
On average, 7.
They said that's nobody's gone from lower than 7 to the Final 4 in 4 of the last 5 years. I went like Bill Hancock is a real nice guy. In case he ever sees this, he's very friendly. But I don't like. I think it's troubling that the guy in charge of the college football playoff doesn't really believe it should exist.
Yeah, that's somewhat problematic. Yeah,
I don't think he was never really for it. I mean, he's a lobbyist, so he kind of goes. But like it just. to me, I don't know. Like,
You think Bill Hancock he's not a puppet?
You think he's making the
I mean,
decisions?
but I mean, like, as far as if you're the voice of something, I mean, I know he's a puppet, but like,
I have never in my life, with all due respect to one of the nicest people we've ever met, have I ever thought that Bill Hancock had the power of a conference commissioner.
no, but like, it wouldn't, like, when you're PR guy, when the puppet, when the guy is not at all like in favor of it, to me that scares me. Like, to me, because like we can't even convince the PR guy it's a good idea.
Well, I think they
and
have.
then, like, the thing is, a lot of PR people, they think every damn thing's a good idea.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, so.
All right. Coming up next, we'll have Roy Miller, and you have to hear the story about his interest and love or wanting to coach or play at Baylor. You have anything else you want to add?
I got
before?
one more thing on this. They're not going to take regular season rematches into consideration. So what you're also going to potentially see is you could see Michigan, Ohio State 2, but as a playoff game.
If only they could do it and do it fairly and not like, okay, we have to avoid that for a certain amount of time. If they're supposed to play in the first damn round, play in the first round.
And they're not going to reseed. So, like, if, there's a couple upsets in the first round, they won't reseed it to where the worst team still plays the number one. It'll just be whoever, just like it should be.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're not going to – apparently they're not going to worry about rematches, so that'll be very interesting to get, like, Bama – well, we've seen the Bama-LSU example before in the BCS era, but that's going to be interesting.
That's good. They got a lot of work to do, and even Hancock said that there's a lot of work still to be done. Coming up next, Roy Miller, and how much and how close he was going to Baylor. And it was a Baylor problem of why he didn't do that. And we'll get into that story along with much more, and the camp in Killeen at Leo Buckley next week for both football and cheer. This is SicEm365 Radio.